John Rasmus Houston here. Let's check out the ocean. Here we are at the beach. Nice beautiful breeze. I'm wearing my new hat. Commissioned, customized. Just for me. The dimensions are 7 inches tall with a flat 3-inch brim. "100% beaver fur, waterproof, very high quality, crafted by this amazing hat maker, hat crafter, hat artist. Check out his Instagram. Here it is right here. It's very cool. Check it out. It's not cheap. It's expensive. But sometimes you have to go the expensive route if you want something one of a kind. Took a long time for it to be crafted. So it's not a quick process. Billy the Kid, in his famous photo, he's wearing a hat very similar to this. This is inspired by that hat. The dimensions, according to my calculations, was 7 inches tall. But looking at the photo, and there's a second photograph of Billy the Kid wearing the same hat, where he's playing cricket. And that hat is less dented than the famous photo of him. That Winchester is still at the Billy the Kid Museum in New Mexico. I want to visit that museum. I want to visit his gravesite. In his famous photo, he's tilted kind of like this, and you can see the hat is dented pretty badly. One of the commenters said it looks like it was ran over by a stagecoach. Billy the Kid didn't rob stagecoaches, but heck, I mean, it's possible a stagecoach ran it over. It's possible he just dented it, maybe some rough housing, whatever the case, it fell on the ground and someone stepped on it. But Billy the Kid, you know, he's a trendsetter. He definitely picked it out from the hat store, and it had similar dimensions to this one. Perhaps it was 1 inch shorter than this one. But his head was tilted. So that's why I thought it was 7 inches tall. It still could be 7 inches tall. It's hard to calculate because we don't know how tall Billy the Kid's head was. But William H. Bonney, rest in peace. I am going to visit his gravesite and do an investigation. There's probably nothing there. But I'd like to do ghost investigations from time to time. I have a millimeter right here. Let's turn it on at the beach. I carry my millimeter all the time, but I don't always turn it on. But I do actually. I turn it on at least for a few seconds to see if there's anything. So what I like to do, hopefully this is visible on camera, is turn it on to get the initial reading. We got 60.4 degrees, 0.0. I'm going to turn on the REM pod feature, which is this antenna right here. When I have a static green after it turns on, sometimes you have to reset it. There we go. Don't assume when it's going crazy after you first turn it on to be a spirit necessarily. It's now. If it goes off now, could it be a spirit? The waves are so loud, if it went off, I might not even hear it. But we're going to zero readings, 0 spirits in this location. But I do believe and know from personal research and personal first-hand witnessing that there are a variety of different spirits. Spirits of the field is something of ancient lore and mythology I do believe is real. I've encountered spirits haunting a field. The grist mill is right next to a field. I think the spirit at the grist mill is most likely a spirit of that field. Not necessarily the grist mill, but it does gravitate towards the grist mill because it's a structure. I do believe spirits hang out near structures. There's no structure on this beach, But there are different types of spirits. There are water spirits, fire spirits, earth spirits. You might get into the generic Wiccan earth, water, fire, wind. But that wasn't invented by the Wiccans. That is an ancient belief that there are 4 elements and there are spirits of the 4 different elements. I can't say I've ever had contact with a water spirit, for example, or maybe I have. Because spirits are invisible, you just have to deduce based on your surroundings. And I could assume there is an ocean spirit or a water spirit or a beach spirit, but as of yet they have not made any contact. This video is not a ghost investigation, so I'm not holding my breath, but I like to test it out just in case. To show it's nothing staged or rigged, nothing happened, and nothing usually happens. I probably have a dozen videos where nothing happens. I didn't upload them because nothing happened. But when things do happen, I do my best to use logic and reason, repeat it on a scientific level, and when you get intelligent responses continually, you can come to the conclusion an intelligent spirit is present. Static meters, electromagnetic field meters can detect the presence of spirits. You've probably heard in the news, or at least I have, because I have a poltergeist keyword alert, and I've heard it probably 3 times now. Are poltergeist cases increasing during the pandemic? And every single one of these articles are written by extreme skeptics, extreme disbelievers of spirit. I would say atheists. In these articles, are poltergeist cases increasing during the pandemic? And the articles always conclude with, people are at home because of the lockdown, and they've never spent 24 hours in their house before, and they're not used to the creaking at 12 o'clock when the sun rises. They're not used to the creaking when the sun sets. And most definitely that's the case 90% of the time, if not 99% of the time. I'll admit and agree that yes. Drywall, wood, steel nails, iron nails, any type of nail and wood and drywall will expand and contract with heat and with cold temperatures, just fluctuating. And every single house will have its creaks. The older the house, the more creaks. Or the perhaps more poorly constructed, or perhaps, there's a million variables. I've seen this headline 2 or 3 times already. Poltergeists in the pandemic. Is poltergeist activity increasing? And then you read the article by a full-blown denier of spirit existing. Someone who doesn't believe their own soul exists. Someone who doesn't believe their own consciousness exists. They're using their consciousness to write this article, but they deny their own consciousness. Why? Because spirit is consciousness. Consciousness is spirit. They're one and the same. Poltergeist activity increasing during the pandemic? Atheist author says, hey, you know what? People haven't spent this much time in the house since the 70s. They're old at this point, and they're creaking and cracking and creaking and cracking, and the 2x4s and the drywall and the moisture and the temperature, and it's all coming together, and they're alone in their house on lockdown, and they hear very possibly, most definitely, You're gonna hear creaks in your house, all right? I would, as a extremely haunted victim of the year 2010 and 11, I would say 99.999% of the time it is not a poltergeist. That's given into the account of what I have witnessed from other people saying, I've never seen anything, I've never heard anything, I've never seen anything, I've never heard anything. I literally saw a tiny butt sit on the pillows twice in a row in the space of 2 minutes. And I was literally like 2 feet away from those pillows, maybe 3 feet away. Close enough where I could have waved my hand over the entity as it sat on the pillows. But I was too afraid. I was too struck full of fear to even do that. Because we're not talking about a carnival game. We're not talking about a fun house of mirrors. We're not talking about some stage illusion magic you're watching on TV or in Las Vegas. We're talking about 3 feet away, a demonic entity sitting on your freaking pillow, out of the blue. Now, it wasn't that out of the blue because it was probably 2 months into the haunting, if I remember. It was definitely 1, 2, 3 months into the haunting. It wasn't that big of a surprise, but it was that big of a surprise because I've never seen an entity depress a pillow like that. It's pretty freaky. Too scared to wave my hand over it. I was like this. No, I'm not gonna do that because I don't want to feel the entity. I don't want to interact with the entity. So I kept interaction with the entity at a minimum. But I did, after the pillow incident, I believe I did maybe 20 minutes later, maybe 15 minutes later, I said, hey, if I was a spirit being, it can float through the whole universe or the whole planet, I'd go to somewhere more interesting. I'd fly around. I would sightsee. I would enjoy the universe, enjoy the world. I might have said I'd fly to Disneyland or something like that. I can't remember my exact words. This is the year 2011. And the entity did respond by, I think, knocking something over. Sitting on my table, knocking something over, something small. So it did react. And its reaction was non-verbal, obviously. It never verbally communicated with me. But what I got out of that tiny movement as a reaction to me asking it, why don't you float around the universe? It's assigned to harass me during this period of time. It's kind of stuck here on a chain in my room. It couldn't go if it wanted to. It's a servant spirit. It's forced to do a task. It was assigned to do a job, and it completed its job after 6 months, because I haven't been continually, perpetually bothered by the entity. It might have visited me in January of this year, 2020. I talked about that. It's in a previous video. You can check it out. But I will investigate. As far as spirit activity, a lot of people are experiencing it. I think some people are experiencing actual, genuine poltergeist activity. The atheists are wrong, okay? Poltergeists are actual beings with consciousness as conscious as you. They see, they have a spirit eyeballs, okay? They feel, they have spirit hands. They have to manifest these spirit hands physically to be able to knock over things. But they can do so. Why do they refrain from doing so? See, they have their own rules and their own guidelines that are not of a human nature. They're not humans. These are not human spirits. These are non-human spirits, and I'm not talking about aliens. I'm talking about freaking demons, all right? Demons are, they're like a different species of entity. They're native to this planet as much as we are. So demons aren't aliens, although they will use the guise of aliens or be mistaken for aliens. And they readily and happily accept that mistake. Oh, I'm an alien? Oh, sure. I'm a supreme alien from another planet. That's a ticket. And they'll run with it. Spirits are invisible beings. They're invisible. But as far as the pandemic poltergeists, spirits love structures. Spirits love houses. Spirits love buildings. You will not find a spirit that isn't at least 1 mile away from every single structure or building created by a human still standing on the face of this planet Earth. Every single structure, there's a spirit that roams nearby. I know that of a personal theory, of a personal belief, a personal fact. Spirits love buildings, and if you live in a house for 10 years and nobody uses one room, the spirit will be drawn to use the room that is not occupied by humans, whether it's the attic, the basement, a closet, or a full-blown room. I've seen many cases where the spirit always occupies the empty bedroom, or the empty attic, the empty basement, the empty closet, the empty hallway, whatever the case, because spirits have the mentality, I'm as good as a human. Why can't I get my own little square of location? I don't need it, but I like it. I want to emulate these humans' existence to an extent. You got to think from the perspective of these spirits. They do not think like humans. They're not human ghosts. Human spirits ascend to a higher dimension, in my personal opinion. But my personal opinion is based on a lot of evidence I've seen firsthand. It's a theory, but it's a theory I have based on extremely strong confirmations of a personal nature. That human ghosts can say goodbye, catch you on the flip side. Just think about every war, think about every family feud of 1800s nature with other than a game show taking place. Do you honestly think that if human beings, after we die, we could haunt and bother people with no limits? That there wouldn't be ghosts everywhere causing havoc to everyone at all times? We can't. We go to a higher dimension and we can't come back. When David Bowie said, "Drop my cell phone down below," in his song Lazarus, he was theorizing, I'm going to die pretty soon. I'm not going to have communication with planet Earth anymore. And that was his analogy. That was his allegory. Dropping his cell phone down below. He couldn't communicate if he wanted to. But he's no different than every other human ghost. We go to a higher dimension. What's below are spirits that are just as native to this planet as we are. They like to interact with us. Sometimes they're assigned to us. Sometimes they have anger. I don't know, it's kind of like road rage. I guess it's possible, obviously it is, to tick off a spirit so much that they reveal themselves. I didn't know such was a thing. I didn't know such existed. But I have personal confirmation. Spirit jumped out of my closet, followed me with 1,000 spirits, assigned the 2 poltergeists after me 1 year later in 2011. So you can piss off spirits. You can accidentally get them to jump out. You see it on some ghost shows. They try to do it on purpose. I personally wouldn't want to do it on purpose. What happened to me in 2010 was on accident. But it was a good accident. I did a good thing. The spirit didn't expect me to do a good thing. And it was a negative spirit of a total evil nature. It said 5 words to me. Disembodied voice. The only time I've ever heard a disembodied voice in my life. The year 2010, 10 years ago. Over 10 years ago at this point. Temperatures will cause floorboards, 2x4s in the walls, the nails inside those 2x4s, and everything in between to expand and contract, like the Eiffel Tower expands and contracts many feet when it heats up and when it cools down. And same happens to the nails in the 2x4s in the walls of our house. And most definitely creaks and pops and snaps and cracks will take place naturally due to natural temperature changes. But these articles are written by extreme skeptics and non-believers and disbelievers and people that simply haven't witnessed firsthand. After you've witnessed poltergeist activity firsthand, it's no longer, everything is just temperature going up and down and no big deal. Because when you see levitation firsthand, an object levitated and moved and dropped, you don't think to yourself, oh, the temperature levitated that object, moved it, and dropped it. Anyone who's researched the poltergeist phenomena knows it's a real thing, even if you've never seen it. I definitely never researched poltergeist phenomena in my life until it happened to me firsthand in the year 2010 and 2011. But the very first, I would say, technically poltergeist experience happened to me probably when I was around 14 years old. My mom was a real estate agent, and there was an open house she was closing. The open house was probably the day before, and she went back to make sure everything's locked and all the lights are off. All I know is I got there when the lights were on. Maybe it was a different real estate agent that had it, and my mom was closing it up and making sure it's secure. All I know is I got there as a 14-year-old kid. My mom asked me to turn off the lights. I asked if I can use the restroom. I used the restroom. And as I was using the restroom, it's one of those restrooms with two doors, one on the right side, one on the left side, and the left door was open all the way to a bedroom. It might have been a master bedroom. It might have just been a regular bedroom, but it had a big closet. It wasn't particularly a huge closet, but it was a closet with wooden doors. Either I slid the door or I opened it. Can't remember. This was a long time ago. I was 14 years old. But I heard knocks coming from this closet. It sounded like a human hand knocking on either the wooden doors themselves or the drywall. And I heard these knocks about 30 times, 30, maybe 40 times, 40. The knock started as I was using the restroom, so if it was a spirit, it was spying on me, pretty creepy. I quickly used the restroom. I walked straight to the house was 100% empty. Opened up the closet. The knocks continued for maybe 15 more knocks as I was standing there. I thought to myself, maybe it's a woodpecker on the other side of the house. Maybe it's a branch of a tree on the other side of the house. Maybe it's something like that. Maybe there's a construction worker nailing something. Maybe it's a shutter blown in the wind. These are the things that came to my mind because I didn't think it was paranormal. I immediately ran outside to find probably 20 feet of grass trimly cut as trimly cut as you would see on a golf course, like 20 feet of grass. Nothing touching the house, no shutters, no birds, nothing a bird could even peck at, just stuccoed cement walls. There was no window other than down to the next room. Nothing that would have even been close to the knocking sound I heard coming from that closet. I went inside, I shrugged it off. I was like, that's weird. I turned off all the lights, and then I walked in the center of the house. The house kind of had two wings, a left wing and a right wing. My mom was turning off all the lights in the right wing, and I was turning off all the lights in the left wing, where the restroom was and where the closet was. The closet was in the far left corner of the house. And my mom said, hey, I asked you to turn off the lights. And I said, I turned them off. And she said, yeah, but they're all on. And they were all back on again. So I turned off all the lights a second time, and then we left. I didn't think much of it, but that's the first time I ever heard a rap and a tap. The 1800s rapping and tapping of spirits type of a situation is what I heard. I heard a knock from a spirit. I didn't know it was that. I shrugged it off and said, probably nothing. But he was a spirit trying to get my attention. Fast forward many years. 2010, spirit sat in my closet. A closet. Interesting. Two closet scenarios. Closets. The boogeyman. Hey, I don't know why spirits like closets, but they do. There are many stories about closets. Earthquake Kelly, a spirit first-hand witness to an extreme degree. He left the voodoo religion, and he had an encounter with a spirit in his closet. The spirit had a green face, like the Wizard of Oz, he said, and tempted him with many things. That's not my story, but because there's a closet associated with it, I tend to believe it's true. It's not the first time I had closet-related spirit encounters. Fast forward 2011, I rented a room. You can look it up. I've talked about this at great length, but they did mess around in my closet, knocked over boxes right next to my closet more than once. But the biggest thing they ever knocked over, and this is nothing like the movie Poltergeist where everything's floating and levitating and orbiting around the room in some invisible tornado. It was nothing like that. The poltergeist that bothered me in 2011, a 6-month encounter, they seemed to kick and punch and knock and sit and stand on things. They never levitated anything except for perhaps a tiny screw inside of my computer case, like 3 feet away from my bed. And it was about 12 a.m. and I was trying to go to sleep, and I hear a screw dropped 3 feet away from my head inside my computer case. I thought, it's probably, they probably are messing around with my computer. These entities can stick their hands through physical objects, pick up physical objects and drop them. Interesting. Now, if I heard that screw drop in an isolated incident, I would have thought, probably the screw got demagnetized and dropped. No big deal. I heard it spiral. But before that screw was picked up and dropped, and after that screw was picked up and dropped, the poltergeists knocked over cups, pencils, pens, water bottles, stepped on bags, creaked every surface in my room. And that happened every single day, night more specifically, up until around 5 a.m. for 6 months in a row, 5.5 months in a row in that particular room. First 2 weeks, nothing happened. 5.5 months of constant, nonstop, every single night, poltergeist activity. Fast forward, I think it was 2018, 2 years ago, is the first time I witnessed with my eyeballs. I saw with my eyeballs, okay? Levitation. I wish I saw it, pick it up. Told the story many times. Watching Netflix. I was going to use the restroom. I took off my headphones. I hear a noise coming from my desk. I look, and I see my wires levitating in the air. It didn't register at first as, this is unusual. It registered as, that's not possible. I didn't leave my wires in an impossible pile. That's not possible. What's going on? So at first you think your eyes are playing tricks with you in a scenario like that. You're not expecting all of a sudden your wires to be levitating. This entity was playing with stuff on my desk while I was watching a Netflix show with headphones on. So it's very unusual because this entity expected I would have seen and heard it do stuff when I was watching a show. So some people have said spirits don't have eyeballs. I disagree with that. I think spirits have spirit eyes and can see. But this particular spirit, for whatever the case may be, decided to start playing with stuff while I was totally distracted. Now, I was looking in the direction of it, but my monitor was covering the desk area. I literally had to take my headphones off to take a bathroom break, and that's when I saw the levitating wires. They hung there in the air, moving, and then they dropped into the pile, which gravity dropped them too. But they were being held by an invisible poltergeist hand. True story, it actually happened in 2018. It happened after I started my Corners of Rooms experiments, and it happened 2 days before one of my live streams where I almost asked the spirit to participate in activities to prove it existed on a live stream, to prove I wasn't faking it. These spirits are calculated. They know what they're doing. At least you think it would have picked it up when I was fully watching. Normally in 2011, they did treat me like an audience member, where they would knock over a water bottle, a cup, my pencils, and knock over my pencils. They sat on a cushion twice, in full view of me watching it the entire time. After Googling poltergeist activity, 99% of the stories I hear are people say they walk into a room, there's this, they walk back, and he was moved. And they never actually saw the poltergeist movement. With me, it was in front of my face. I saw the cushion sit down twice. In front of my face, I saw the pencils and the cups and the 3 boxes kicked over next to my closet, in front of my face, in full viewing of my face, watching it, my eyeballs watching it the entire time. So when some people say, oh, my chapstick moved, and that's a true story, one of my viewers said their chapstick moved. I'm not making fun of that scenario. That's just as serious as any poltergeist activity. It's pretty freaky when your chapstick just moves on its own. But was there an earthquake? Do you live near a train station? Even I tried to look at the logical conclusions before I jumped to the poltergeist conclusion. So I see where these disbelievers' minds are at. They've never seen it, so they automatically remove it from their vocabulary, remove it from their dictionary, remove it from their encyclopedia of what's real. I have witnessed it, so I include it, all right, every single time. But I'm understanding to the fact that very few people have seen poltergeist activity, very few. I actually went to this very beach in 2011 when I was being poltergeist harassed in my room, to this very beach. I went to this beach a couple of times. I don't think I picked up the poltergeist here at this beach. I was targeted in 2010. An entity spoke to me, said 5 words. Disembodied voice. I've never heard a voice before, never heard a voice after. I don't hear voices other than that one time, a disembodied voice. Very unusual. People say, you were just hearing things. I heard the entity sit on a box in my closet twice, then speak 5 words, then walk through me with great power, great force, with what felt like 1,000 spirits walking through my body. I moved as it happened. It was very freaky, very scary experience. Less than 1 year later, but the next year, is when I rented the room on Craigslist, which happened to be extremely haunted. But I don't think that room was extremely haunted before I got there. I think I rented it. I think the negative spirits saw that it was a compatible room for such a haunting. And 2 poltergeist demons, I believe, were assigned to harass me for a test, for an experiment, for a testing of my will, a testing of my spirit, a testing of my resilience, a testing of my spiritual strength. You fill in the blank. But I do believe I passed that test. As far as obsessing on it, I only obsess on it because it's an important subject. Now, I don't obsess on it on a crazy level. I go to the beach, I try to have fun. I came here to show you my Billy the Kid hat. It's a very, very cool hat, custom made. I'm going to be wearing this hat during future ghost investigations. Just wanted to show it to you. It took 6 months approximately for this hat to be completed. And it fits perfectly. After I got my haircut, I just got a haircut. Man, I just got a haircut. During this pandemic, it's not easy to find a barbershop that's open. I found a barbershop that's open, had to make an appointment, got a haircut, and now my hat fits perfectly. Before the haircut, it fit a little bit too tight, now it's perfect. This is how I believe Billy the Kid wore it, on a level where he can shoot and not have it fall off. A lot of unrest in the world today. Billy the Kid took out a sheriff that was corrupt. And the entire Lincoln County, the community, were on Billy the Kid's side because he took out a corrupt sheriff. Billy the Kid was actually a marshal, was asked to arrest this corrupt sheriff because the corrupt sheriff wanted to run the whole town. You've probably heard the story. The corrupt sheriff literally ran this businessman out of the town, confiscated his entire store, property, everything, his livelihood, and then he killed him with a posse for no reason other than he was a competition to another store, and that store was friends with the sheriff. That's about as corrupt as it gets. So the entire Lincoln County knew about it. Lincoln County War, that's the crux of why the Lincoln County War started. I think Billy the Kid tried to be a warrior for justice. Kind of fell down the wrong direction. But I can't judge. I do believe in a supreme being that can judge. Man, I've seen a lot of stealing during this pandemic, and you feel for the people that are out of work. Luckily, I found employment about a month ago. So I found employment during the hardest time where people cannot find it. I moved to this location in January. I got to the DMV before it closed. I did a lot of things before they closed, so I got lucky. I found a job. It's pretty tough. It's a pretty tough job. And I see a lot of theft, a lot of stealing. You could say I'm an essential worker. I'm not going to say where I work. Doesn't matter. But what do you say to a thief stealing something in front of your face? Can you please not steal that? These people are down on their luck, but I do see them take things that they don't need. Like makeup. You don't need makeup. It's not an essential thing. Food and water, beverages, food, clothing, it's understandable, but makeup? No one needs to be stealing makeup, all right? And I don't even justify the stealing of the food and the clothing and the beverages, but that's more understandable. A lot of unrest in the world today, a lot of bad things going on, but I always focus on the spirit. I'm going to do a review very quick on DeLawrence's Oracle of Life and Destiny. I'm a big fan of L.W. DeLawrence, but this particular book, DeLawrence's Oracle of Life and Destiny, is definitely not something that is anything other than a reference book. It has a little chart with what to do. Thou shalt be happier than heretofore if you have that many dots. What do those dots relate to? The dots relate to what looks like a crossword puzzle. These aren't magic squares. These are simply questions and answers. And DeLawrence claims at the beginning that a lot of people conduct their lives based on this book. I wouldn't recommend it. This is definitely one of the misses when it comes to a lot of the hits that L.W. DeLawrence republished. I doubt L.W. DeLawrence wrote this book. He probably got it from somewhere, an older source, even if not that much older. The publishing and republishing laws during L.W. DeLawrence's time, late 1800s, early 1900s, were really loose. So he could legally get away with republishing other people's works. But I think he tried to find older stuff, but sometimes he did find contemporary stuff during his day. We have some chiromancy, I guess that's the palm reading you're familiar with the palmists, palmistry, what do we call it, the psychics who tell you the future. I haven't finished 100% of this book. I finished about half of it. And I finished half of it because it's redundant. We're talking half this book is whatever may possess your inclinations this day, abandon them. Half the book reads like a fortune cookie. And I will use this chiromancy, and I mean, you know, I'm not super familiar with that. So there's a section on dreams that's very short. I'll read the dreams section. If I come across anything super interesting, like the dreams section, I have not read this section yet. This is not a comprehensive book review. Just wanted to let you know an update that this is more of a questions and answers, kind of like a glorified 8-ball. Should I go to the beach today? All signs lead to yes. That's half of this book is like that. And it's definitely not for reading. It's for reference purposes only. But being a huge L.W. DeLawrence fan, I'm still going to keep it in my library permanently. I collect and hold on to anything L.W. DeLawrence. Because when you're beginning an occult collection, you don't want to start with brand new stuff. You don't want to start with the ancient tomes of codexes of millions of dollars. L.W. DeLawrence is actually a decent place to start. He has a nice late 1800s, early 1900s compendium of 100 plus books. The general basics of what the occult is all about. I do believe L.W. DeLawrence had first-hand contact with spirits. In his book, The Book of Death, has a longer title than that. Either he or the previous author, whatever the case may be, said, why do only evil spirits communicate? And that is something only someone with first-hand experience with spirits would question and write down in a book. It's a good question. I'll tell you this, 9 times out of 10, the spirit doesn't want to cooperate. They'll mess with your device a little bit, and they'll just play dumb. A skeptic would say, oh, that's because it's not a real spirit, it's just random energy bopping around. Well, you're not going to get signs of intelligence. Are you a spirit? Yes. And I'm going to be using in the future a pretty sophisticated device. I've sworn them off until now. I'm going to be using in the future a spirit box. I don't recommend it for everyone. Spirit boxes, they speak. You can hear the words. Welcome. Hello. And this particular spirit box I got, you can twist it, make it go faster. I could make it scan through 100 radio bands in a few seconds. And if you hear, how are you? In 100 radio bands, or even 20 radio bands, 10 radio bands, 50 radio bands, 30 radio bands, how are you in the same voice? It's literally impossible. Unless it is some impossible technology we don't have yet, where you can broadcast on every radio band. Someone with a walkie-talkie couldn't do that. These are different radio bands, and you hear in the same voice on 30 of them. So this device has been shown with previous ghost investigators to be able to really pick up the voice of spirits on many radio bands. You can speed it up as fast as any spirit box I've ever seen. I'm reluctant on using it, but it's a nice plan, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, when your first handful of devices show iffy results. When you hear, how are you? After you got a bunch of beeps on a static meter, you can't say, oh, that's just energy bouncing off, whatever, just natural environment. Natural environment doesn't say, how are you, all right? So the more data, the better. I'm going to continue to investigate. It's a beautiful beach out here. I hope you can see it. Let's take a look at the view. I'm a fan of comedy, but I think any human being is a fan of comedy. But it is interesting, people troll me and they'll see my spirit information that I throw out there. Seeing poltergeists, having first-hand contact with poltergeists, true story, actually happened. And they'll think it's comedy, they'll think it's satire. Come here and interview me. Take my word for it or don't. You can really assume I'm lying all you want. It's not going to hurt my feelings too bad, because probably half my subscribers watch me thinking it's a gimmick or something. I'm dead serious in everything I've ever talked about concerning poltergeist activity. It's a real phenomena. Raymond Bayless was a poltergeist expert. I've read his books. I disagree with his conclusions, but I read his books because he was legitimately a poltergeist expert. There aren't too many poltergeist experts in our era today. I am John Rasmus Houston, poltergeist expert. Take me to the most haunted house in the world, the most haunted castle in the world, the most haunted jail, the most haunted basement, the most haunted cave. I'll go willingly with my equipment. And the number one piece of equipment is me. You can really feel and sense when a spirit walks through you. I have that ability. I think many people have the ability, but I have it to a very heightened degree. It's my number one spiritual ability, is being able to feel when spirits walk through me. I gotta admit, after announcing that information, a lot more spirits started to walk through me, because they're like, oh, let's test this guy's ability out. I have to conclude, it's been slowing down. I haven't felt spirits walk through me on a continual basis since I've moved here in January, to be honest. So there's a lot less spiritual harassment taking place, although on January, 15th, 18th of this year, I did hear poltergeist activity in the corner of my room, of my new room I just am living in right now. But that's the last major encounter I've ever had. I don't know if it was January 15th or 18th, somewhere around there. You'll see my previous videos where I talked about it. Why do I write down dates? Because when people say, I have a date. But after I've written it down, it disappears out of my memory. Spirits exist. Positive spirits exist. Negative spirits exist. Truth exists. Truth is a real thing. Truth isn't an abstract concept. Truth is a defined, real, tangible thing, even if it's of an intangible nature. Non-physical entities with pure consciousness roam the earth. They exist. They're natural inhabitants of this earth. When I saw the Simpsons episode of Bart Simpson selling his soul, did he sell it to Milhouse or something? I can't remember the details, haven't seen the episode in many years, but it gave me insight into how atheists see the soul. They see it as a non-real, inanimate object that can be sold, mocking those who believe in the soul, mocking those who believe in spirit. I'll tell you what the spirit is, the soul of the human is. It's consciousness. Your consciousness is your soul. You can't separate your consciousness from your soul. Your consciousness is your soul. So you can't just give away your soul to the devil and expect you to be in another place and your devil have your soul. Your consciousness is your soul. I don't believe you can sell your soul to the devil, personally speaking. I think people have tried, and I think you don't have full capacity to make such a contract of such gravity. So if you do try to sell your soul to the devil, I think you're going to be popped back to a level of a dimension where all human spirits go. But it might not be of a positive nature. So I think there are definitely consequences to attempting to sell your soul. I don't believe you can, but I think there's consequences to attempting it. Stay tuned, more episodes coming soon. I thank you for watching. This has been John Rasmus Houston. Be seeing you.